Let's move on to Republican reactions to the Walz pick, because there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about in terms of how Republicans sort of decided to navigate. You have this rural Hunter, you have the Shapiro being passed up, and now there's reporting suggesting that Team Trump was intentionally coordinating to take down Shapiro as the pick.
Pennsylvania governor, yeah.
Right, and they were sort of celebrating that the pick wasn't Shapiro and was instead Walz, because they see Walz as sort of weak and easy to attack and easier now to sort of staple his resume to Kamala Harris. So this is from Fox News right away yesterday after the pick was announced.
Well, facts still matter, so let's look back at his record. Walz's first executive order as governor was to create a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. He also supported open borders.
You know, he talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory.
And he pushed socialism.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Just do the damn work.
Oh, wait, and there's more. He signed an executive order protecting gender-affirming care or surgeries for minors in his state. And in 2020, he was the governor of Minnesota during the George Floyd riots that burned part of Minneapolis to the ground. It was so bad that Walz himself called out his own response.
I got a call from a friend and a dedicated public servant. Senator Torres Ray called in her district, and it was on fire. And there weren't any police there. There weren't any firefighters. There was no social control, and her constituents were locked in their house wondering what they were going to do. That is an abject failure that cannot happen. If the issue is that the state should have moved faster, yeah, that is on me.
All right, so they're at the throwing everything against the wall phase. What do you think would stick there?
Well, I mean, go to a bar in like outside Duluth and say you want to invest in a ladder factory to help people get over a border wall. See how that goes, Tim Walz. I mean, there's a serious...
Well, I think he's telling a joke that the wall is a joke because people can easily find ways around it. And you could say, hey, look, the United Kingdom is having a massive immigration problem. They have a giant ocean around their country. And they still can't figure it out.
I don't, yeah.
It's a moat.
The wall itself is...
They have a huge moat and a channel.
We could continue going on his immigration policies. Defending them in that proverbial bar or that hypothetical bar outside Duluth would be hard, whether it's driver's licenses, healthcare assistance. That's a really hard argument to make. Now, so to make that point, I think there is those lines of attack. I don't think vice presidents matter that much. I could see on the margins, same way on the margins, I could see, stapling J.D. Vance's, all his public comments and stuff to Trump could be painful for them in the suburbs, especially with like affluent women who look at that and are like creeped out by J.D. Vance saying different things. I could also see on the margins people being concerned that Walz has said things like one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness, which...
Did you see that was on the white dudes for
It was on the white
Harris?
dudes for Harris call, which, by the way, is not... Like, that's a conversation that we could all have here. But when you're governor, it freaks people out. And so I commend him for being honest about it.
Isn't that
politically,
a cool way of saying it, though? One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness?
I think it is, but
like
Republicans...
We're all in this together. We're all in this for our neighbors.
100%.
Unless their neighbors are... And as long as our neighbors aren't bothering us, we'll leave them alone.
100%. You know as well as I do.
If they need help, we'll help them out. If they're not bothering us, we're not going to criticize them.
Agree completely. The label pulls so poorly that Republicans just a couple of years ago during the Dem primary were salivating over the idea of a Bernie Sanders candidacy because they were just pulling the word socialism in the suburbs.
Right.
And if
but that's why he's rebranding it to neighborliness.
Right, but he said it in a way that makes it, they can run that as an ad. I'm just saying, like, I think it's
I would beg them to run that as an ad.
I don't think it's a...
Please run that. Please run that as an ad.
I think it's politically, I think it would be wrong to say politically that does not add some vulnerabilities to the ticket. And now I don't think those are huge vulnerabilities. I do think they are vulnerabilities. I also think that his trans policies in particular, because they were so specifically related to children, will be a problem on the campaign trail because the mood in the country has shifted on those issues significantly. So if Kamala Harris is asked to defend that over and over again, that will be tough for her.
It's also every VP candidate was going to have some problems. Mark Kelly, his big problem was he was lousy on labor. And at The Intercept, back when I used to be at The Intercept, we were just trying to help Democrats out. And we hammered Mark Kelly multiple times for refusing to sponsor the PRO Act, a major labor reform. And he didn't take our advice, didn't do it. And sorry, buddy, next time listen to us. And maybe you'd be VP right now. Instead, you had Sean Fain out there saying that the one he really liked, the two he really liked actually were Bashir and Walz. And the UAW, the most kind of resurgent labor union in the country right now. I think that really helped him and hurt Mark Kelly. Now on the point about the trans politics hurting Walz, this is where the weird thing comes in.
Yeah.
Because even when you poll that question, then in general Americans are against like the surgeries for minors. In general, but it's very complicated if you call it gender affirming. But overall, I think people don't like that Republicans are making them think about it. And Republicans are the ones that are tagged with the weirdness.
For bringing it up. Yeah.
There was a tweet that I saw circulating yesterday where it's, a liberal is saying good luck, painting this guy as a commie and showing him hunting with his hunting dog. And I think it was Stephen Miller.
I sent that to you, yeah.
Yeah. Stephen Miller says he puts tampons in the boys' room in high schools.
Yes.
And it's okay,
Why are you a grown man talking about tampons?
Stephen Miller is the one making me think about this. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know. I see both sides of that one because I do think it's you guys are selling this dude in a camo hat who's hunting, just like a lot of my family, as just your average Minnesotan. He did sign the bill that mandated tampons in men's rooms.
But my thinking on.
But you're saying that when Republicans talk about children's tampons, it makes you think about it, and you're like, shut up.
Right, exactly. And also, because when I think about it, it's okay, should tampons be in the boys' room in middle school or high school? It's if they are, it's probably because some student found that helpful to them, and I don't care. Put them wherever. And also, pro tip: bring your own pads or tampons to school. Don't count on the school to have them in the bathroom. They're when you need them, they're not going to be there. So
why did you feel the need to dispense this advice?
Because if somebody's watching this program and they're I can just go to the bathroom, either one.
It is why people watch the show, though, for the health advice from Ryan Grimm.
Yes, exactly.
This is what we're paying for people.
Don't you agree? You wouldn't count on the school having pads or tampons. Come on.
There are a lot of things I would just generally not count on schools for. That is one of them.
Yes.
So the Trump campaign's reaction was, I guess, sort of as predicted. Here's what they said yesterday. Frank Luntz made a funny point, and I'm loath to say that, but here's Frank Luntz on X. Interesting, this is B2, interesting that Trump says Tim Walz will be the worst VP in history because it means that Kamala Harris is not. That's a Trump campaign email, obviously. He'll unleash—
spam. How does that get through the spam filter?
I don't know that it does. I guess it got through Frank Luntz's, but this is an actual quote from it in all caps, highlighted. He'll unleash hell on earth and open our borders to the worst criminals.
I thought they were already open.
That's true. That's a good point. Maybe keep our borders open to the worst criminals imaginable. Green New scam, trillions of dollars on fire, millions of dirty cash to buy the White House. That one I don't fully understand. The real killer, he's already pulled in, quote, millions in dirty cash to buy the White House. You're right, it does look like spam. Now, Trump—
Wouldn't he support lighting the trillions of dollars on fire because that would reduce the money supply?
That's a good point.
And they think there's too much money supply in the economy.
Have you considered responding to him?
That would be quantitative tightening.
You should respond to him on True Social. Yeah. This is why you should be on True Social.
No, if I can find his email in my inbox, I'll just reply to whoever whatever that inbox is.
This is what he posted on Truth Social. Gavin Newsom then posted it to Twitter and said, "Oh, he's scared. What are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the U.S., whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen from him by Kamala, Barack Hussein Obama, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, crying Chuck Schumer, and others on the lunatic left, crashes the Democrat National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, beginning with challenging me to another debate. He feels that he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the U.S. presidency, a coup to the people in the world he most hates, and he wants it back now." The Kamala thing has started to get some traction too.
It's not great if you can't tell if it's a typo or an attempt at a nickname.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is it a real attempt?
I think so. I think so because...
Is he basically calling there for a January 6th to restore Joe Biden to the nomination?
Well, we know that there's a January 6th, there's a soft coup, there's a hard coup, there's a soft J6, there's a hard J6. Who knows what degree of J6? One
thing Trump and Biden have in common from Trump's perspective is that their vice presidents both pulled coups on them, right?
And as Trump would be foolish not to remind us of this.
That's right.
But Tim Walz also was on camera. That's another thing I think could hurt him. Shortly before Biden stepped down, right after the debate, saying that Biden was fit to lead. He was outside the White House saying that into a microphone to reporters that Biden was fit to lead, fit to be president for another 4 years, basically. So that could hurt him as well. Now, J.D. Vance has been hitting the trail hard. Dude has been everywhere. As you know, the idea was that Donald Trump was regretting the pick of J.D. Vance, that he wanted to, sort of turn down the volume on Vance. Vance is crisscrossing the country right now. Here's what he had to say yesterday about Walz.
The reason I didn't say a whole lot about Tim Walz is because the Democrats have showed a willingness to pull a little switcheroo on us. So I don't even know if we're actually going to get Tim Walz out of this campaign. And I think that a lot of us are asking ourselves, well, it's not going to be official until the Democrats actually nominate him, I guess, at their convention next week. So that's the first reason. The second reason is, look, Tim Walz's record is a joke. He's been one of the most far-left radicals in the entire United States government at any level. But I think that what Tim Walz's selection says is that Kamala Harris has bent the knee to the far left of her party, which is what she always does. The only thing I'll say about Josh Shapiro is I genuinely, there's some fans out here, I genuinely feel bad that for days, maybe even weeks, the guy actually had to run away from his Jewish heritage because of what the Democrats are saying about him. I think that's scandalous and disgraceful. Whatever you believe or whatever disagreements on policy you have about somebody, the fact that that race, the vice presidential race on the Democratic side, became so focused on his ethnicity, I think is absolutely disgraceful.
Do you think you have any similarities? And you can talk about like common ground that you share with Walz.
Well, look, I mean, yeah, we're white guys from the Midwest. I guess there are similarities there.
I guess.
Yeah.
What'd you make of that?
Why did it say chaos behind him? Like that was my first.
The sign behind him.
The sign behind him said chaos.
Chaos, yeah.
Like you got to think more about the signs you're going to put behind somebody. I don't know. It combined with that Trump tweet feels like real sour grapes from Republicans about the fact that they're not getting to run against Joe Biden anymore. And I get it. Like I would much rather be running against Joe Biden. Like they were about to win Minnesota and New Mexico and Virginia.
Yeah,
like,
Minnesota. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were on their way to an absolutely historic landslide. A landslide so historic, Trump was like, I'm gonna go with Don Jr.'s pick and make J.D. Vance my vice president. And then all of a sudden, and also I think that they're extremely frustrated by the fact that Harris has been running for president now for 2 weeks. He's not done an interview, not had a press conference, and basically not rolled out any policies except to flip-flop on Medicare for all, on basically everything she ran on.
Yeah.
Like anything that was progressive that she ran on in 2019, and I won't say 2019 because not 2020, because she did not make it into 2020. She dropped out before then.
Yeah.
She has walked away from all of those things.
Yeah.
She's found time to retreat from all those policies, but she has not put any affirmative policies out, except she said she's going to make the Affordable Care Act better, which good. I'd like to see the Affordable Care Act made better.
That can really mean anything with her, because remember when she raised her
Trump
hand
says that
about
too,
Medicare
though.
for all and the...
Yeah, right. But yeah, Trump also says he's going to make the Affordable Care Act better.
He says that everyone will have coverage.
Good. Great. If we can have a presidential campaign with both candidates competing for who's going to make the Affordable Care Act better, who's going to expand coverage more better, great. So I think Republicans, tell me if I'm right, are just extremely frustrated. Now, they're used to like the mainstream media kind of taking them for this ride. And then this. Now, it's interesting that the Trump campaign was so nervous about Shapiro. Like that they felt like, and there was some analysis I saw that said that he would add about a 0.4% margin to the Harris ticket in Pennsylvania, which sounds like not much, but in a very tight race is actually a huge amount.
Yeah, it's a good point.
If you believe that it's statistically significant, like that, the race very likely will be decided maybe by that amount.
Yeah, because if you look at the tallies from 2016 and 2020 in some of those states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, I was looking back at them the other day, there's razor thin margins in those states.
So the Trump campaign seems happy that it wasn't Shapiro, but I wonder if they're a little bit, I think they expected worse Democrats than they're getting right now.
Well, I think that's true. And I think they also underestimated, in fact, I know they underestimated the degree to which Kamala Harris would be accepted with open arms by this sort of political establishment, from the media to
and the left
elite Democrats.
The left didn't put up much of a peep.
Right. And so I sent this to you guys yesterday. It was like Cynthia Nixon sipping like coconut water like yesterday. Like it just has been, all of the coup stuff has gone away. And that's what the Trump campaign really wanted to hammer home. It was like, this was a soft coup. They have just totally thrown democracy out the window while they're running under. That stuff is not sticking. And
it's not sticking because it's like Trump saying, this is a soft coup against a guy that I believe should resign. So it's like,
I feel like it's not sticking partially because the media just fully moved on. It's not entirely untrue that basically what we saw happen was an immediate decision after the debate. Like it wasn't immediate, it took a couple of weeks, but it was immediately, things started to fall into place, and this started to, it didn't happen before the primary for a reason, and then suddenly happened after the debate. So I get that, but I think people are frustrated by how big of a boost Kamala Harris has gotten from pop culture and media. I don't think they expected it. They should have expected it. I don't think they did. That said, the race is still basically tied. She is doing well in some new polls, but the Shapiro thing in particular, let's roll this clip of Ben Shapiro.
No relation.
No relation, talking about how he ended up getting passed up and what he thinks that means. Let's roll B5.
She has opened herself up wide to every attack on her radicalism by picking Tim Walz. See, there was another pick that was available, and everyone sort of expected that person to be picked. That person, of course, was the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro. Pennsylvania has 18 electoral votes. Josh Shapiro has a 61% approval rating in Pennsylvania. Very easy pick. Super, super simple pick for Kamala Harris. And we know why she didn't pick Josh Shapiro. And the reason is because he's a Jew. Also adopted under Tim Walz's governorship, background checks for private gun transfer, which of course means effectively a gun registry. DFL lawmakers also banned supposed conversion therapy for LGBTQ people, which is much more controversial than it sounds like. When they're talking about conversion therapy, they're no longer talking about the horrible old practice of taking teenagers who were gay and electroding them or something. They're talking about, actual therapy for people struggling with their sexual identity, for example. He legalized recreational marijuana. He required a carbon-free electric grid by 2040. Again, that is such insanity. That is not going to happen. That is not going to happen because the alternative sources of electricity, like wind and solar, are simply not up to the task of supplying electricity to an entire state on the base in the middle of some of the coldest areas of the United States. Adopted a new reading curricula based on phonics and passed a massive $2.58 billion capital construction package. So that is tax hikes. That is spending. That is Tim Walz in a nutshell.
So again, I don't think he's wrong that those bring vulnerabilities to the table and vulnerabilities that Josh Shapiro might not have had. But I don't agree with this premise that Walz does not also bring advantages to the ticket that Shapiro wouldn't bring to the ticket, and that Shapiro's just this sort of Gavin Newsom, like playing, I could play a politician on TV type guy.
And Kamala's very much seems like a politician.
Yes.
So two of those.
Yeah. Agreed.
Against Trump, the anti-politician, is a tough race.
Yeah.
And Shapiro very much acknowledged Walz's avuncularness, he called it, his affability, like his likability. Like, I think it's the one thing that everybody is like, okay, yeah, he's a likable guy.
Right.
He seems cool.
Yeah, and that's going to be, because one of the reasons Kamala Harris reportedly was interested in Walz is that when he went on cable news, and Crystal and I talked about this last week, and made that weird remark about J.D. Vance, that these people are weird. That was impressive because coming from him, it seemed to stick that he had this. Now, Republicans may, because of that sort of cultural progressivism, may actually have an ability, we'll see how well it sticks, to paint him as weird. Again, we will see how well that politically sticks, but that coming from him is different than that coming from Josh Shapiro. I don't know that Josh Shapiro could even pull that off because he just seems less regular. And when it sounds like a regular guy saying it, it's easier to make it stick.
Right. And the more that Stephen Miller goes on Fox News, like ranting about
tampons,
Tim Walz and tampons, and getting offended at the weird thing. It's like, you're not beating those charges, man. I don't think this is the guy you want to drag out to tell us that you're not weird.
And again, yeah, I agree that all those things are vulnerabilities, but to what degree they're vulnerabilities in this larger context of how much a vice president will even matter. To your point, there are marginal reasons that these are important picks in places like Pennsylvania, so I don't disagree with that either. But how much this conversation will be about Tim Walz and his various policies going forward is very much an open question. It depends on what Republicans decide to run on. Certainly this gives them something to work with, but voters are thinking about the people at the top of the ticket for the most part. So I don't know that this is going to be a huge part. Even like when people are making up their minds about who to vote for. In a place like Pennsylvania, if your governor's on the ticket, that's different. Republicans probably were not going to win Minnesota, even with Joe Biden at the top of the ticket.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.